Welcome to the verse-by-verse study of the book of Proverbs. We shall cover the first half of chapter 6 today. Again, we have a father sharing godly wisdom with his son. Proverbs is God teaching us, his children, how to make wise decisions that lead to blessings rather than heartache and headaches. The wisdom topics covered today will be debt, work ethic, and sinful lifestyle. Let's take a look beginning in verse 1. My son, if you have put up security for your neighbor, if you have shaken hands in pledge for a stranger. The father here is describing two situations to avoid. First, putting up security, collateral, for a neighbor or a friend. At first, you're agreeing to pledge some family assets, likely your home, in order to allow a friend to borrow money. In the second case, you shook hands, which means that you legally, personally guaranteed a loan, a debt, so a stranger could borrow money using your name and your credit. In both situations, the lender did not trust the friend nor the stranger. A good lender always looks at what's called the 5 C's or the 5 factors before deciding if they will make someone a loan. The first and most important C is character, meaning someone's reputation of honoring their prior debts, their credit history. In these two cases, the lender has determined that both these borrowers were not credit worthy, and therefore the lender required the risk be transferred to a guarantor. So the guarantor became the de facto borrower. The father is warning the youth to be smart about such financial entanglements. The implication in the first case is that there was a hasty emotional decision influenced by the relationship with a friend. And in the second case, the language implies that the youth made an uninformed decision about this stranger's lack of character. In both cases, this youth did not do his or her homework. The next verse says that the youth was tricked, snared. The youth engaged his heart and his mouth before he engaged his brain, and is now stuck with the other person's debt. The wisdom here is not saying we shouldn't be generous. It is warning us we should not be gullible to an emotional, unwise sales pitch, even from a friend, and certainly not to fall to a smooth-talking stranger. You have been trapped by what you said, ensnared by the words of your mouth, ensnared by your own mouth. You made a hasty decision without seeking trusted advice, without prayer, without doing your due diligence, especially objectively weighing the other person's character, that first C. Your mouth put yourself and your family assets in harm's way. So what do you do now? Verse 3 tells us, so do this, my son, to free yourself, since you have fallen into your neighbor's hands. Go, humble yourself to the point of exhaustion, and give your neighbor no rest. Allow no sleep to your eyes, no slumber to your eyelids. Free yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter, like a bird from the snare of the fowler. Excessive debt is to be avoided because it is a trap that robs us of both freedom and peace. The first godly advice is, do not delay. Problems, especially financial problems, do not get better with age. Second, notice you must be diligent in communication and in resolution. God's telling us to swallow our pride, admit we made a mistake, and be relentless in working it out. Now next in verse 3, it addresses another youthful pitfall called laziness. Go to, meaning to consider. Go to the ant, you sluggard. Consider its ways and be wise! Exclamation point. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in the summer and gathers its food at harvest. The father calls on the youth to look to the work ethic of the tiny ant as a role model. The ant is self-reliant, dependable, industrious, a team worker. The ant does not need an overseer. It is trusted, a self-starter. They're also a saver and a planner. They know in life there will be lean seasons to come, so they invest now for those future events. Now next, the father will plead with the son. Perhaps this is a teenager son. How long will you lie there, you sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Here, sleep is used as a metaphor for life. The reference to the folded hands implies that a person has chosen to be unengaged, uncaring, the opposite of that ant. There's no self-motivation. There is laziness. Laziness is a decision that can easily become a pattern, a habit, a lifestyle. The Father's warning about this choice. This choice has consequences. The attitude of the ant brings blessings, but this attitude of laziness brings verse 11. And poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. Rejecting God's wisdom and choosing to go through life loafing, uncaring, will bring poverty. Not only financial poverty, but also poverty in relationships, emotionally, and also spiritually. This choice sadly robs us of an abundant life of joy and purpose. Now the Father in the next 3 verses will shift gears and warn us about even darker choices. A troublemaker and a villain who goes about with a corrupt mouth, who winks maliciously with his eye, signals to his feet and motions with his fingers, who plots evil with deceit in his heart. He always stirs up conflict or unrest. Again, we have a father's warning to this youth not to become a person that harms others. The word troublemaker in Hebrew here means someone that's selfish, someone that only takes, doesn't give. And the word villain means someone that causes sorrow to others. They have an uncaring heart that uses deceit to get what they want at the expense of others. They use their corrupt mouth to employ flattery or lies or pressure to manipulate. They leave no value. In their wake, there's only sadness, division, and unrest. Now next in verse 15, the Father warns of the consequences of this choice. Therefore, disaster will overtake him. In an instant, he will suddenly be destroyed without remedy. Sadly, the person that sows discourse and destruction will eventually reap what they sow. Now next, God will list 7 attributes that he very much dislikes. Why? Because the harm that they bring. There are 6 things the Lord hates or rejects, 7 that are detestable to him. First, haughty eyes. Second, lying tongue. Third, hands that shed innocent blood. 4, a heart that devises wicked schemes. 5, feet that are quick to rush into evil. 6, a false witness who pours out lies. And lastly, number 7, a person who stirs up conflict in the community or in the family. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list of all the sins, but this number 7 expresses completeness in Scripture. This list represents a serious set of attributes that represent a heart that is far from God, and it breaks God's heart. And the first and foremost of these is, quote, haughty eyes. These are eyes of pride, eyes that look down on others. Pride is always the opposite of wisdom because wisdom begins with humility. Next, we have something that's closely related to pride, which is a lying tongue. Here it means to distort the truth to gain an advantage to manipulate someone else. Hands that shed innocent blood. Again, to selfishly harm others at your own gain. A heart that devises wicked schemes is a heart recall the heart is a source of motivation. Here there's a premeditation, an intent to do evil rather than to do good. Then that intent puts into action, which is number 5. Feet that are quick to rush into evil. So the heart yields the intent, and the feet indicate the action, the actual evil taking place. Then number 6, which is another form of dishonesty, is a false witness pours out lies. Of course, a false witness is someone that lies under oath. Here it says pours out, which literally means breathing lies. Lies has become an involuntary habit, natural as breathing. And then lastly, we have stirring up conflict within the family. This is a person that's not walking with God. And they create and fuel unrest and anxiety by sowing gossip, anger, hate, distrust, falsehood, manipulation. All of these are the opposite of a peacemaker. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. The peacemaker is a person walking in God's wisdom. They bring calm and peace to every situation by speaking wise truth in love. We'll close there and finish up the last half of chapter 6 next week. Until then, may God bless you and your family with both peace and grace. Aloha.